What's the dumbest thing you've done for a girl? Story 1. I spent $80 worth of flowers just to get this girl to see my worth as a potential partner because I thought I really liked her. Turns out I was blindsided and it was just infatuation. The more time I spent with this girl, the more I realized how she lacked structure, suffered from her insecurities, and cared more about K-pop bands than living in the moment and getting to know each other. She constantly complained about how people were not taking time to get to know her, then lo and behold, I showed up. I developed a friendship over a year and realized things weren't going to materialize, especially after I confessed my feelings for her. I poured my heart and soul out to this girl. She grew up sheltered, so looking back at the pointless conversations and her naivete, she still had a lot of growing up and maturing to do. I'll hit her up every once in a blue moon. Things haven't changed much, and this all happened 2 years ago. I guess at the end of the day, I dodged a bullet. We weren't compatible anywhere. 23 years old, and she has the maturity of a teenager still. Always complaining, but never taking action to better herself or her situation. That's the last time I buy flowers or do anything special for anyone, all for the sake of companionship. Can't lie, I've grown and matured a lot over the years since then. I started counseling. She's a woman in her 40s, and our conversations are so in-depth and intriguing. It's nice to talk and converse with someone who understands you mentally and emotionally for once. The maturity of a teenager still, always complaining but never taking action to better herself. Today I learned many, if not most, adults have the maturity of teenagers, which makes sense. Far too few people actually take a proactive stance on self-improvement. First off, you're still figuring yourself and your life out in your early 20s. You think you're more grown up, but you aren't totally, and that's totally fine. Also, maybe her lifestyle and yours just aren't in sync, and that's totally fine. Doesn't mean anything is wrong with her, just two boats on different rivers. Story 2. Meet her at a party in her hometown, which was located 2.5-hour drive away from where I lived. At that time, I didn't have a car, so I convinced a coworker to go and drive us in his car. I was a smoker. From the time I called the girl that day to ask her out around 2 p.m., I stopped smoking because she didn't like cigarettes. My coworker was also a smoker. I asked him not to smoke inside his car so I wouldn't smell like cigarettes. He wasn't happy with this request, but did what I asked. My coworker and I finally made it to the party to find that the organizers only accepted cash. We didn't have enough cash for the tickets. The girl didn't bother coming outside to help us out. So it's around 10 p.m. and we're trying to find an ATM to get more cash. Please note, we were in a small town in a third world country. We asked around and learned there were 2 ATMs around the area, 1 inside a petrol station, 2 inside a shopping center. We drove to the petrol station and the ATM was not working. We drove to the shopping center, which is supposed to close at 10 p.m. We get there at 10:15-ish, and we see some people leaving the place. We try to go inside to use the ATM, but the security guard doesn't allow us inside because it's past 10 p.m. 20 minutes later, I managed to convince him to speak to his manager, who's at his place enjoying his Saturday night. His manager answers the phone, and after cursing and wishing my family the most horrible things you can ever imagine, he does authorize us in. The security guard escorts us to the ATM, we get the cash, victory! We go back to the party and we're finally able to get in. I called the girl a few times and she doesn't pick up my calls. A few moments later, I managed to find her hooking up with a guy and holding a lit cigarette. Bruh. I'm not exactly sure how to feel about all this. Driving 2.5 hours to hook up at a party? Okay, I remember an age where I might have considered that. But also, let your coworker smoke if you've pressured him into going in the first place. Your 8 hours smokeless wasn't going to fool her. Story 3. Girl asked me to come over around 3 a.m. I taxied to hers in a blizzard, but she's fast asleep and won't answer her phone. Had to walk back home. Got home at 7 a.m., left for work at 8 a.m. We rescheduled to go out next week. Never happened. She moved to a different continent the next week. Why some people play these freaking mind games is beyond me. Surely there must be other ways to get a slight ego boost without burning your bridges with somebody who probably cares about you enough to at least buy you an ice cream. Story 4. I developed a huge crush on the girl in school who was hot and would flirt with everyone. The one that's actually just super outgoing and not flirting. For her birthday, I went and got her a card and put a cute picture of myself as a 5-year-old in it for some reason. I have no idea why. Turns out she didn't like me. She thought the gesture was weird. And she started avoiding me like a plague. I peaked in high school, and a lot of the other attractive girls liked me, but this was very damaging to my self-esteem and really hindered my crap. I haven't done anything overtly dumb since. If anything, that experience has gotten me to underdo crap as a defense mechanism. You didn't peak in high school. Life will get better and better, especially once you put high school aside. Stay strong, friend. Story 5. Junior year of high school. We're talking on the phone and I knew she hadn't been feeling well. She always seemed a little embarrassed at how bad her cramps got when it came to that time of the month. So it's probably 10 p.m. on a school night. This was back when that was a big deal. She was clearly miserable, and she let it slip that all she wanted to do was get back to town the next day so she could have a chocolate milkshake. She was craving chocolate. Well, nothing else to do. Dairy Queen is closed, so if she's going to have a milkshake tonight, I'm going to have to make it myself. After a couple questions from my dad, he always makes the best homemade shakes, and mastering our ancient blender, I had one ready to go nestled in a cooler of ice cubes and some frozen peas and corn to keep it from chirping over. Now, she lived outside of town, like way out. We're talking banjo country. So it's a minimum hour-and-a-half round trip. And I know that since it's a school night, if I let her know that I'm driving out, she'll try to stop me. Her parents certainly would. So it's gotta be a surprise, and it's gonna be fast because if her parents are asleep when I come up the driveway, it's a roll of the dice whether I get chewed out or shot at. This is long before the era of cell phones. But I made the drive. I showed up at her door. Her parents are confused, but no shots are fired. I present her with the object of her desire, a chocolate milkshake. I think she was kinda giggling and kinda crying, probably hormones or something. Since her one night, I made human woman happy, so that was 1998. We've been together ever since. Aw, dang it. Here I was cringing and waiting for things to get awful, and you just up and put a big old smile on my face. That was, as the prompt asked, pretty dumb, but hey, sometimes love is dumb, and that's okay. Story 6. It wasn't for a girl I was trying to be with, but a friend of mine at the time. We were still in high school, and my buddy was trying to bang this girl from school really bad. I was staying the night at his house one Saturday, and he wanted to go see her really bad, but neither of us had a vehicle, and his dad had already gone to sleep. It was late, but we decided to walk to her house, which was 7 miles away in town. So that night, we walked a 14-mile round trip to this girl's house so my friend could do anal with this girl. He made me wait outside by a tree. While they were fooling around, I heard a loud thump. When he was done, I asked what the noise was. He said her head hit the wall when they were switching positions. I was rolling. I'll never forget that night. We made it back to his house about 15 minutes before his dad woke up. That was probably the sleepiest I had ever been at that point. You're the wingman that becomes the best man. Story 7. Wow, I'm late to the thread, but I'm commenting because I did exactly that. She was my girlfriend, and she was sort of upset about something. I said I realized it and knew she was sad, so I got on my running shoes and a shirt and ran all 7 and a bit kilometers to her house. It's probably 4.5 miles or something. It must have been after 3 or 4 a.m. It was so dang dark. Before leaving my house, we said goodbye because she was going to bed, so I told her, see you in a bit, but not any other hint. I asked her cousin to keep her awake. The look on her face when I told her I was outside her door was something to remember for sure. I stayed until maybe 6 a.m. or something, and then I walked all the way back home. My legs were freaking killing me. Fun times. Would do it again. Joined an event called Beer Olympics to be with a girl who I was very much interested in. Since I was an introvert, a party was the last place I wanted to be in, but I went there for her. I would have done anything for her. There was an arm wrestling competition in this event. I never thought I was strong, but I didn't think my opponent would break my arm. The skin didn't tear, but the upper arm bone had pretty much been torn/twisted off. I had to pick up my arm and hold it in a way that didn't look like it had been torn off because everyone was freaking out, especially this girl. She was in shock for a while, on her knees, unblinking, until she came to and began helping me. With her holding and consoling me, I could feel no pain. The adrenaline also helped. When I was put in the ambulance and she was no longer beside me, the pain finally broke through, and it was the second worst pain in my life. Second only to the pain I felt when she said she wasn't interested in me. My right arm was useless for about 6 months. My scar from 2 surgeries still looks fresh today. Every time I see it, I'm reminded of how stupidly obsessed I was with her. I suppose at least I can thank her for my being ambidextrous now. Did you ever worry that she lost interest because you lost? I would never be with a man with such brittle bones. I like boys who drink lots of milk. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm sorry for your loss. Story 9. I'm assuming you mean for a girl you thought you had a chance at getting with, not just dumbest thing you've done for a friend, in which case drunkenly singing a love song on her parents' back porch at 3 a.m. after the 4th of July until her dad had to come and beg me to go home. You've got one heavy pair of balls, my friend. Story 10. A completely random girl on Twitter that I came across about 10 years ago from an Alone on Valentine's Day hashtag posted about being alone. I found out through her Twitter that she worked at Boots and what city, so I called up each one to find out which particular one she worked at and then sent 100 roses there, and that was it. Saw through her Twitter that she received them, and that was it. Moved on with my life. I can't for the life of me even begin to remember why I did. I obviously didn't want to gain anything from it because I never even followed her or even spoke to her. But hey, I guess I made a stranger smile even if it was a bit odd. She still spent Valentine's Day alone just with 100 roses that a complete stranger sent to her. I don't know, if I were her, I might have spent Valentine's Day with a trusted friend and a baseball bat for protection. I'm kidding. That seems like a nice gesture since you had no weird intentions, but still odd. Story 11. Drove 187 miles to drop her scarf back that she left at my student house. Didn't even get a thanks. Just an Instagram story of her wearing the scarf out that night. Story 12. As a kid, I played tic-tac-toe with myself in the dirt when she walked by to make her laugh. She laughed but must have thought I was a freaking idiot. That's rough, buddy. Story 13. Traveled across the country to meet a girl I had met online. Full promise to get laid and all that. Arrived and her boyfriend had arrived on the same day for a surprise visit. Spent an awkward weekend with my friend. That's rough, buddy. Story 14. I gave her my grandmother's rose after her funeral. We were together in high school and had broken up and had been together around a month and a half when my grandmother died. Thought it was an opportunity to express how I thought we could go to being in a more serious relationship. She ghosted me the next week. Yeah, don't give people funeral roses, especially not after a month and a half. Story 15. I let her use my bathroom pass in high school. It counted as 1% extra credit on final grade at the end of semester. I got held back at 69%. I still regret it and had to retake that class. Story 16. I forgave her for cheating, after she told me she wanted to consider separation on my birthday, and a month goes by while I wait to see if she wants to stay married or not. Then I found out she cheated and told her it's divorce time, and she cries and begs for forgiveness. Then a year of awful one-sided reconciliation. Then I caught her again. I got stuck somewhere in the idea that you make a marriage work, you make vows, it doesn't matter how hurt or miserable you are. You swore you'd take care of her. What a goon. I hope she's out of your life by now. Story 17. I went with my bike 23 kilometers or about 15 miles for her keys. She forgot them at a friend and I was kind enough to go there. I was happy because on that day I really wanted to go with my bike and I don't regret that. Glad you don't regret it. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 18. More to impress her. We were both freshly 18, decided we were going to go get tattoos. She agreed she'd get something behind her ear and I'll get one on my butt. I went first. Turns out she wasn't that impressed and backed out of her tattoo. At least the pot leaf on my butt makes a good story. It's been over a decade that I don't smoke weed anymore, LOL. The weed is behind you. Oh, commenter, don't make the OP the butt of the joke. Though if you tease them, they seem like the kind of person to turn the other cheek. Story 19. Missed my chance at a first kiss, realized when I got back home. Just as I got home, the arm that held my driver's side window collapsed, dropping and shattering my window on the ground. I turned around and drove 20 miles in December without a window for a kiss. Story 20. Watched all the Twilight films, which she was excited about. Hope I could try and bond with her over that. I couldn't bring myself to say anything positive about that mess. Oh, dude, back in the day, my girlfriend called me to come over to watch a vampire film with her and a couple of friends. Little did we guys know what was coming our way. Story 21. Bring her a chocolate bar, her favorite, at night. Then, having to take the bus for an extra hour to go home, wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, go to school, go training for 3 hours, take the bus again, and repeat for several days. But at the end, her smile was worth every single hour of sleep deprivation. I hope you're still with her. I remember being young enough to endure that kind of sleep deprivation. Nowadays, if I did that just once, I think I would be useless for a week, and I'm not even 40. Story 22. Drove her 14 hours back home from college just to have her break up with me when we got there. I am sorry, bro. Story 23. Oh, I win. Age 19, a girl who I was completely in love with and had dated but dumped me was smitten with motorcycle riders. I had never ridden a motorcycle in my life. I entered a $500 safety course, learned, got a license, and bought a $3,000 bike with money I saved working in restaurants, all within 6 months before riding it up to her apartment to win her back. It worked for like 6 months. The bike, which I rode maybe a total of 10 times, was stolen off the street not a few months later. I was so dejected with the whole ordeal I never reported it. I just forgot about it. To be fair, she tattooed my name, which may be worse. She's married now. Wonder if her husband is a seasoned bike rider. Story 24. I let her convince me to wear one of her dresses and let her do my makeup. We took a picture, brought it to my friends the next day. Dang, Hobo D, who is her cute friend? Me. It was me. Well, if you insist, I will wear a dress. Well, if you insist, I will wear makeup. Well, if you insist, you can take my picture and show it to my friends. Honestly, not seeing the dumb here. She didn't cut your willy off. You wore clothing and makeup. I wear makeup sometimes, and I friggin' own that crap. Story 25. Probably messing up my entire sleep schedule, staying up and talking to her every single night until 1 or 2 a.m. and getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep for a full 3 months just to get fricked over. This is hella relatable. Story 26. I broke up with her from a long-distance relationship thinking she would be happier, and it just ended up hurting us both and damaging our relationship to where I haven't spoken to her in a year and a half. Story 27. Was in high school. She said she liked a man in uniform, so I joined JROTC just for the sole purpose of impressing her. She moved away a month later. 28 years later, I'm now an officer with the military. I'm playing the long game, Melissa, wherever you are. Frickin' Melissa. Story 28. We were at a party and she mentioned she really liked my shirt and asked me where I bought it, so drunk me naturally told her she could have mine. So I took off my shirt mid-party and gave it to her. Neither of us commenting on the fact that it was like 2 or 3 sizes too small. I hadn't brought a jacket, so I spent the rest of the night topless, and in the end we just went our separate ways. I never saw her or my shirt again. I loved that shirt. That's when you know it was a lit night. Ah, drunken dumbness to impress someone. That's the kind of dumb that you're thinking about the next day, just going, why did I do that? Story 29. When I was 13, I put frog eggs in my parents' winterized pool to impress a girl. In spring. They hatched, and the pool had thousands of pollywogs in it. I had to drain, clean, and fill the pool as punishment. And no, I didn't get the girl. This is great. I'd have been very impressed. Story 30. By this time, she and I were only talking online. I was a dumb butt teenager, so when she said, dongs look bigger when they're completely clean-shaven, that's exactly what I did. It's not as if I planned on showing her, I just did it to see if she was right. I completely shaved my pubes, and it was weird as frick. Not only did it look strange, it felt strange, and that got worse when the hair started to grow back. My electric trimmer set comes with a small battery-powered handheld trimmer. That is the secret, my friend. Never cut yourself, never get razor burn, and still have a little bit of pube stubble so you don't look like a prepubescent child. Story 31. Visit Scotland. I will point out that I'm English and her entire family freaking despised the English except her mother, and I was staying with her family for the 2 weeks I was visiting, so I was bombarded with hate 24/7. And when we were out, her family went through my bags and stole my stuff or ruined it. For those who are thinking it's my own fault for going, well, I never knew they despised my England. After all, it's been a couple of 100 years since we went to war, but just like the Welsh girl who came after, I was mistaken. Not your fault. Criminal behavior can't be excused by prejudice, which is also wrong. Story 32. Took my stepdad's truck to meet her in the middle of the night. It was a manual. I didn't know how to drive a stick, and it ended up in the middle of the street. I woke him up and he believed me that I just happened to wake up and see it, and blamed himself for not setting the parking brake. See, folks, this is why you need to learn how to drive stick. Not because it's inherently cooler, though it is, but because you never know when you might need to for love. Story 33. In my late 20s, I was chatting with a woman for about 8 months every night for about 30 minutes. She sent pictures, seemed really into me, and felt we connected in ways I had never been connected to a woman before. She kept encouraging me to come visit her. I finally booked a flight to Winnipeg via Boston, rented a car, and drove to Brandon, Manitoba to stay in a hotel and basically get stood up after book reservations in the fanciest restaurant in that small town. Turns out she was a lonely housewife, led me on, and chickened out on meeting in real life. Drove back to Winnipeg and proceeded to have a rockin' good time at some local bars at a place called The Forks. Story 34. Not mine, but I worked with a dude who did something pretty dumb. We were working for a small Chinese food delivery place. We'd be lucky to break $60 in tips for the night. And this was in a high cost of living area. One day he shows up in a brand Mitsubishi Eclipse. A little while later I asked him why. He said to impress a girl. I asked him if it worked, and he told me he got to touch her boob once. I felt really bad for him. Story 35. I, a heterosexual male, moved to a different country for a girl, lived with her for 3 years as a couple, only to get my butt dumped because she finally figured out she was a lesbian. Good times. Story 36. I drove 11 hours once to see my ex-girlfriend because she said she wanted to see me, and it turned out she just wanted me to meet her new boyfriend. Bro, folks, you gotta stop driving so far for people. Gas isn't cheap, you know. Story 37. Writing my first manuscript and getting a famous journalist reply to me just to prove a point in a completely weird PowerPoint to convince her that I could change my whole life just for the sake of love. Realized it wasn't really about her. Now I have to fricking write a book because this journalist wants to see more of my work. If you want to get out of writing that book, just show the journalist this post you made. I'm pretty sure they'll realize their mistake. Story 38. Sacrificed university to be with her only to get dumped a week after the deadline to attend. 4 years of dead-end jobs later, and I'm attending university this September. Story 39. Would drive from UCLA to Imperial Valley at 6 p.m. to see her after work for maybe 10 minutes knowing I had class the next morning. Story 40. The girl I liked some years ago, I used to buy her food and do many things for her. I was freaking blind for her, and she kept being ungrateful and was still really rude towards me. I wonder why I was so freaking blind and instead let her step on me the whole time. Now I wouldn't even talk to people who are being disrespectful to me. That's just how it is, man, but at the end of the day, you really feel good that you are no longer bound by that feeling again. Story 41. Not a guy, but reading these stories has inspired me to share. I was 14 in my first relationship. I was talking to him on a school night when he referenced Irene Adler. I pretended I got the reference and then Googled it to find out he was referencing to BBC Sherlock. To make sure I could keep up the lie that I'd seen the show and got his reference, I stayed up all night and watched every episode, about 9 hours. So when I saw him at school, he wouldn't know I'd not seen it. That is pretty dumb, mostly because Sherlock is totally overrated. Yeah, that's right, I said it. Come at me, commenters! Bring the hate! Story 42. I invited a girl I liked to a house party. I let her sleep in my bed and my friend was too drunk to walk home, so he slept in my bed too. I slept on the floor and woke up to them shagging. Story 43. Quit engineering school to marry her because she didn't want me to leave for university. She left and we divorced, and I can't go back to school now. Got a beautiful daughter out of the ordeal though. Definitely worth the trade and landed a decent job, so it all turned out all right. Story 44. Married her, bought her car, had some kids with her, and supported her in our house. She cheated on me, kicked me out of our house, and kept pretty much everything including the kids after some crazy crap about how I was a psycho abuser. Really thought it was true love and we could work through all of it. She wouldn't even take me back after I tried forgiving her. Embarrassing. Dude, just leave town and change your name. Story 45. Today, I effed up back in 2007. Being a teenager and dating this amazing girl of my age for almost 3 years, we exchanged small gifts. But dumb me thought of getting a less expensive promise ring on one occasion and just slid it during our dinner date as she had mentioned this would make her happy. She was ecstatic. She thought we got engaged. Fast forward, parents got involved and she wanted to get married after college. Neither of us had jobs. We broke it off after about 6 months. Dumbest act with the worst execution, in my opinion. Yeah, I've only got one more story after this one, but I feel confident in saying that this was indeed the dumbest thing to do. Don't just give people rings without some explanation, people. That's how Sauron gets you. Story 46. At her request, I once made a small pillow and filled it with my freshly cut hair. Year after our breakup, she apparently still has it, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I was wrong. I need that dumbest thing award back, please. We have a winner! Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.